All right. So far this morning, we've gotten to know each other just a little bit, and we had a wonderful scavenger hunt where hopefully you learned the building a little bit and you work together and you realize that we all bring different strengths to the team, and we have to rely on each other to use those strengths and find out about each other. What are each other's strengths? So we've had some good time doing some team building this morning and getting to know each other, getting to know our building a little bit. And then we've talked and celebrated some wonderful things that have happened, as well as some gaps that we have in our achievement. We talked about some inconsistent outcomes and some differences between classrooms, and we know how important it is to have equitable classrooms on the campus so that every student can have an equitable experience. So going back and just really wanting to strengthen our campus and our student outcomes by implementing that PLC framework that we've begun talking about this morning. And since we're such a strong Leader in Me campus already, we know that Leader in Me and PLCs go really well together. So I'll continue to use a lot of that Leader in Me language so that you see that really we have some good things in place. We're tightening systems and making sure that we're all using the same language and thinking in the same direction for our mission and vision. So let's talk about the three big ideas of PLC next. Before we continue, let's go back to our norms. We agreed this morning that we would be present and engaged, that we would use technology respectfully. So right now we're not near our computers. So hopefully we can put everything down and just focus on each other. We're presuming positive intent in all areas, focusing on solutions, and we're honoring your time because we know that you have so much to get done. So we all want to stay focused this morning. All right, so when we talk about PLCs, we're going to think about these three big ideas, and we'll go more into depth in the next couple of days about what each one means. This is just the beginning overview. So when we say focus on learning, that means when we are having our PLC meetings, which, by the way, PLC is not just a meeting, a PLC is a community. So it's how we do things all day long. But when we are focused on learning, that means we're not focused on complaining. We're not focused on all of these other things that can get in the way, but really, truly, first things first. What do we want students to learn? So that is our number one focus. What do we need students to be able to do? The other big ideas are collaborative culture and results orientation. So when we think about collaborative culture, that goes right along with Synergize and Leader in Me. All of us bringing what we have to the table is better than one of us. If we try to do everything on our own and only use what we know, we are not as strong as the collaborative team is together. We all have different experiences and backgrounds, and that comes together beautifully to make something much bigger and better than we could ever make on our own. Collaborative in a PLC meeting means this is what worked for me, or being brave enough to say, my kids are not getting it. What else can I try? And then helping each other. That's the collaborative process. We think about results orientation. That's beginning with the end in mind. What do we want students to have? What's our overall goal for the school? And then we break it down. What do we want the kids in the class to learn this lesson? So thinking big and coming all the way down to each lesson. Okay. So what do we want them to learn? And that goes straight into our next slide. So go straight from that into the four critical questions. So every time that we are planning in our lessons, our common planning time, which is a big piece of our professional learning community, when you're with your teams and you're going over the standards for each week, you pick out those couple essential standards each week and really hone in, and that's what you're going to answer these four questions. And it might sound a little overwhelming at first, but once we work through it a few times, you're going to see how beneficial it is, and it's going to become second nature. And you're going to wonder, how did I ever plan lessons without these four questions? Because they're just that great. So number one, when we look at a standard, we want to see, what do we want students to learn? And we're not just making this up out of thin air or guessing. We have such great resources. We don't have to do that. We're going to be looking at TCMPC, and we can look at our TEAC specificity for that to really understand what we want students to learn. And the how will we know if they learned it? That comes from your student outcomes, your SEs right there that are all there for you. So it's really a matter of pulling up TCMPC, identifying the standard that you're on, collaboratively looking at it, reading it out loud, and making sure that your entire team has an understanding, because it is the responsibility of that team to make sure every member leaves. And it's your responsibility, if you don't understand, to stop, pause, ask questions, collaborate, and get understanding from the team. So what do we want students to learn? What exactly does the TEK say? How will we know if they learned it? What is the student expectation? What should they be able to produce, say, do if they know it? And then we need to look at, what do we do if they don't? If we know what we want students to master in that lesson and they're not able to do it, what's our plan? And we're making that plan as a community and a collaborative effort, because we have teachers with experience that have had students already that didn't get it, and they've had techniques that work. And we have wonderful new teachers that also have great learning and things that they are bringing to the table, and new fresh ideas that we want to be open to as well. So we want experience, we want fresh, we want that to come together. And then question 4, what will we do if they already know it? So what about those students that come to you and they've already mastered this and they've got it? Are we just letting them sit? Do we have an extension for them? And those extensions can also be found in TC and PC. We can look at the vertical alignment. We have several tools to look at that together. So it's important that we thoroughly answer all 4 questions for each and every standard that we have decided is essential for our students. Okay, I've done a lot of talking this morning. I want to show you a quick little 2-minute video that I just think will be nice and inspiring for us, give us all a deep breath. And then I'm going to send you on a 15-minute break to take care of personal needs, to talk with your team a little bit. If you like, you can use the 15 minutes, whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. And then when we come back, we're going to have some more discussion and an activity that I think everyone will really enjoy. So I want you to sit back and watch this video, just kind of reflecting inside your own head about it, and then we'll enjoy a 15-minute break. Okay, everyone, thanks for taking a few minutes to take care of your needs, and thanks for coming back. I hope you enjoyed that couple minutes. I heard lots of good conversations happening around the room, and it looks like everyone's getting to know each other. So we're coming back together now, and as we come back together, I'll go back to our norms again. So we are all now coming back to be present and engaged in our conversations. We're going to use technology respectfully. We will need our computers in just a few minutes, but not quite yet. We are still presuming positive intent. We're focused on solutions, and we're honoring each other's time. Okay, go ahead and look up here on our screen. We have the next activity is a KWL, which is, what do you already know and what do you want to learn? So the next couple of minutes, we're going to give you to have a discussion at your table. And so when we come back from lunch, we're going to be more with our own groups, but you are purposely set right now with people who are not on your team, your content team, or your grade level. Right now, we're purposely mixing everyone up, but I just wanted to let you know that you will have time later with your team. So I heard someone ask that earlier, and it is very intentional because the whole school community needs to work together. So this is intentional to have some conversations and hear some perspectives, because not everyone has the same perspective if you teach a content level or if you're our lovely choir teacher over here. But PLC is for everyone. So I wanted to tell you that is very intentional. Okay, so for our KWL, this is what I want you to do for your discussion, and we'll give you about 10 minutes, okay? I want you to talk about what you already know about PLC, maybe something you learned this morning. Some of you maybe have done PLCs at other campuses that you've been at. I know a couple of you read the PLC book because you knew this was coming, so you've read some of the DeForest work. Tell me something or tell your table something that you already know about PLC. And then I want you to talk about some of your questions that you have surrounding PLC. What do you want to know, like about how this is going to look this year? I promise it's not scary. Some of you, I can see a little apprehension, but we're presuming positive intent. This will be a good thing, and it will just give us that framework. So have those discussions at your table, and then I need a volunteer from each table to pop onto the slideshow that we gave you earlier. And on the slide deck, there's a place for you to enter. I need at least 2 things that you already know from the table, decide on what y'all think is the most important, and 2 that you want to know. So just 1 volunteer needs to get on the computer and add those to the show and then to the slideshow so that we can have it for everyone to see. And that will guide some of our further discussions later on in our training. Okay, you guys can go ahead and get started with that. Okay, looking at our slideshow and hearing the conversations around the room, it looks like everyone's had a chance to complete that last task. We have some very interesting things up on the slideshow. And like I said, that will help us. We want to answer all your questions by the time our professional development days are over. So that really is kind of like that parking lot to help us with that. And then I really enjoyed reading what you already know about PLCs. I see mostly positive things, maybe a couple things that we can come back to and clear up later. So, okay, right now we are going to watch a very short video. It's only about 2 minutes long, and this is from Rebecca DeFore, which is one of the founders of our PLC model. And she is going to, this is just a piece of one of her keynotes that I really want us to pay attention to. And after we watch this, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. What really stood out to you and what challenged your thinking? So keep those 2 questions, begin with the end in mind. Keep those 2 questions in mind as you watch this video. Okay, now that you've had a chance to watch the video, I would like for you to take just a couple minutes with your table group and answer those couple of questions. Just have a little informal discussion. What stood out from the video and what challenged your thinking? I loved walking around and hearing your discussions about the video. It was really great. Would anybody like to share out some of their thinking? What stood out to you? What challenged you from that video? This is where I would give teachers a chance to just talk out loud and have kind of a group discussion about what stood out to them and what challenged them. I would expect this part to last several minutes and just be a good time of collaboration and thinking out loud. All right, again, just such great discussions, and I'm so glad and thankful for this time that we've had this morning. And just continuing on, we want to kind of take a shift right now and talk about what is a PLC and what is not a PLC. I want to make sure that we are definitely on the same page, that this is not another initiative or a meeting that we're adding to your plate. This is not a binder, and it's not another meeting on your calendar. It is a team of educators, the team that you already are, making a recommitment to working together to ensure that every student learns at high levels. So it's not teaching the content, but making sure that students actually learn the content. It's how we know students have mastered what we're doing. It's how we know we're effective. And it's not another meeting. It's using the time to the best ability and to the best strategy of that time. So the meetings that we're having anyways, it's making sure that we have an effective structure to those meetings. So let's talk about what a PLC really looks like. When we have our PLC, we talk about those 4 questions that we just went over earlier. What do we want students to learn? How will we know if they've learned it? What do we do if they don't learn it? And what will we do if they already know it? So everything that we do in PLC should come back to those 4 questions. Now let's talk about what a PLC is not, because this is where things get off track, and this is where we lose a valuable time, and a lot of times it just leads to frustration. So PLC is not a time to talk about field trips, parties, special events. Now, do we talk about those things? Absolutely, but not during this time. This is a dedicated time for student learning, student outcomes, and making sure students learn what they need. So although we have those other tasks that do have to be handled at different times, that is not part of our PLC meetings, okay? It's not a place to just randomly throw out ideas or random resources. We have our resources, and we know with our new House bill that we can't just bring random resources to the table. This is a time to look at our specific resources, okay? This is not a time when we just talk about students like, oh, did you hear poor Jax has all these things going on at home and his aunt and his mom. And no, this is not, but we are looking at actual evidence of student learning, not talking about all of those other things. And this is not a place where we just come and work in isolation and we divvy up tasks. This is a collaborative meeting where everyone is bringing something to the table. We're working together and we're having meaningful conversations. A PLC is when we're looking at student work together. We're bringing in actual work samples from students. We're using our data from DMAC, iReady, informative assessments, and we're looking at that together to make actual decisions. We're identifying which students need more time and support based on their data. Okay, that's how we're going to look at tier 2 and tier 3. And we're coming with a willingness to adjust our instruction based on what students have actually learned. Not what we wanted them to learn, but what our data says they actually mastered and actually learned. A PLC is also about shared responsibility. We move from my students to our students. All students are all students, our students. And that is a shift. It requires trust and honesty because I have to be able to come to that table and say, this is the struggle. My students are not getting this. And I have to be vulnerable with that. And we have to have a community that allows vulnerability. So we're going to keep focusing on what a PLC is and what a PLC is not with this next activity. And we're going to collaborate with the intention that student learning improves if we get PLC right. Okay. So the whole point is for our students, which is why we're all here in the first place, right? So every student, every classroom, every day, learning at high levels is what we can achieve. So we have a task at your table. You'll see in a bag, you have lots of little cards. And then, so one of the cards will say PLC, one of the cards will say not PLC. And this is just going to be a sort, okay? But you cannot do the sort without the whole team participating. So one person will read out the task card and the whole team will have a quick discussion about if that task card represents something that will happen in a PLC or not a PLC. So a couple examples that we have up here for you. Creating a list of essential standards all students must master. So let's pretend the 6th grade science team got together and they created a list of essential standards all students must master. Is that a PLC task or not PLC? Yeah, it's PLC. So we would put it under our PLC. What about if that team got together and they spent the whole time blaming 5th grade at the other elementary campus for all the gaps that these students have? Is that PLC or not PLC? That is not a PLC task. That's not productive. That doesn't help students learn. That doesn't do much for us, does it? So you guys probably understand the task now. We're going to give you about 15 minutes to do that, to work with your table group to sort those out. And then we will come back together and we'll talk a little bit more. All right, our sorting task went really well. I loved walking around the room and seeing you guys have those conversations. We talked about a couple of them that were a little bit sticky and trickier to identify and had some great conversations about that. So what we're going to do now is you'll see our assistant principal is up here ready to type, and we are looking based on those conversations we've had so far today and on our sorting task that we just completed. We want you guys to kind of shout out if we were looking at a PLC meeting. Let's focus on our common planning time, which is just one type of a PLC meeting. What would we be looking for? What are some things that we look for in our PLC meetings? Okay. So this is when I would have teachers just raise their hand and shout it out. I'm not looking to make a perfect finished list at this point, but I'm looking for teachers to take ownership and for them to guide the conversation of what a PLC should look like, because that would tell me as an administrator, if my staff was understanding what that should look like, it would show me who was willing to share out and be brave on that. And it gives them ownership because now they are telling me what a PLC should look like and what should be happening in a PLC versus me continuing to tell them. So I think this would be really powerful as an administrator to hear what my staff tells me at this time, because really they're making the rules for PLC right now based on all the learning that we've done so far in the morning. Now they're writing this. So I would be walking around as they raise their hands and making sure that my AP was taking some rough notes. Does not have to be perfect. It's something for us to go back to. And it's something that I would probably polish up just a little bit and print and put in my PLC room and make sure that just come back to that this is what the teachers all raised their hands and said. Okay. So you do that with a very careful balance. But I would be hoping things like what I have presented would be brought up by teachers, that they would talk about their norms. Because that's just respectful for each member to come in with that set list. And one I would always try to guide them towards is being present on time, because we've had so many times our campus does PLCs where people come to our common planning time late, and it is disrespectful because it's honoring everyone's time. So when we talk about honoring time, that's being on time. Things happen, communicate with your team if there's an emergency or a problem happening, but be respectful of everyone's time. Student-centered conversations, a clear agenda. We come in knowing what we want to talk about and prepared for that, that we stay on task and don't let side conversations happen, that we remain data-centered, that we're using our TCMPC and our high quality instructional materials, and that we're not still trying to bring what's been in our folders for 10 years or bringing things from forever ago, but that we are using our resources correctly, and that that's something that we bring to the table, and that everyone has a voice, because everyone has something valuable to bring, and one person cannot do all the talking, because that is not collaboration. So that is the part of my presentation that I have shared for you, and the rest of my agenda would go on as such. Okay.